Bitcoin is making a new all-time high as we speak. That number is actually pretty crazy to see right now at $116,000 per Bitcoin. I mean, first of all, this is just definitely something to celebrate. So really wanted to come live here and chat with you guys about not only Bitcoin, but also what scenarios this could lead to next that could bring some interest into altcoin, and how dare me even say altcoin season maybe. We'll discuss that in a little bit, but you guys know that my stance on altcoin season is that until liquidity is fully back in, we're not talking about full-blown altcoin bull run, but at least there are going to be some interest in altcoins if Bitcoin makes a dramatic move. And we have seen this happen in a short period of time twice before over the last 3 years almost. So that's a potential that you could play. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well. But most importantly, I do want to give you guys some analysis on what the Fed is actually doing. So there has been some new developments, not concerning interest rates and not concerning the Fed's balance sheet, but more nuanced. Two things have changed regarding the Fed's intervention in the market in the overnight repo purchase agreements. So this is a facility that they can stealthily inject some liquidity, as well as the supplementary leverage ratio, which is a ratio that they put on the US banks to limit how much treasuries they can buy. So this is also another form of stealth QE, and both of these are actually starting to move. So we'll discuss that in a bit. I'll also give you guys some more trade setups on the altcoins that are currently not in my trading bots. So I've just dropped a trading bot video on Pionex. You can go ahead and watch that in the first link in the description. But long story short, these bots will help us automatically buy low and sell high. So I am really rushing to get the levels set up for these bots so we can get entries on XRP, on BitTensor, Superverse, PEPE, just the coins that I really want to have in the long-term portfolio. So I'll show you guys my ranges to accumulate these coins at using the bots. Okay. If you guys are new here, welcome. My name is Dennis. I'm a crypto angel investor for the past 6 years, and I have invested in over 100 crypto startups. On this channel, I share views on market trends and investing strategy to build wealth in crypto. Okay, let's get straight into it and talk about Bitcoin. So only a couple things you need to know about Bitcoin. Number one, the 20-week and 50-week simple moving average. As long as we are above the 50-week SMA, right now that's sitting at $87,000, Bitcoin is in the bull run. And anytime that it drops, close to the 20-week SMA, that's a really good buying range, because that means the average drawdown has been quite large, and Bitcoin will enter a period where you can start to accumulate at value levels. So whenever you have this Bitcoin ranging in between these two levels, that's where you have a lot of opportunity to accumulate quite a bit. Even if you're not too comfortable, going all in one clip, when it drops below the 20-week SMA, you will have a few weeks where you can just DCA in for a average entry in that range. And that gives you a really good tight stop loss below, this bull market support, which has held true for nearly 2 years now. Okay, so what does this mean for altcoins? So I believe I talked about this in the last altcoin live stream, where you can find it basically on this one. So there are only a few scenarios that all need to play out before you can truly call this a new altcoin season. And we haven't had all of these together yet in this cycle. So number one, Bitcoin needs to be in a bull run, right? That's the only thing we've had so far that keeps people coming back, is clearly Bitcoin goes up, but why aren't altcoins going up, right? So I've sent a poll before on X asking about this. So what really triggers your altcoin season? And people all understand that Bitcoin dominance needs to break down in order to trigger an altcoin season. But even though everyone knows this, they don't get it right, because when is it actually that Bitcoin dominance is breaking down? Well, it's not any of these, right? So these are all charts that I have shown in the live stream 2 weeks ago. But basically, even when Trump came into, when Trump won the election in November and December, was this a breakdown, right? Was this altcoin season? I mean, sure, you can say altcoins outperformed Bitcoin over 5 weeks, but then all of that gains were erased in the following, 7 to 8 weeks. And then overall, Bitcoin dominance went higher and altcoins bled against Bitcoin after that point. So you can say, okay, this is a short period of 1 month where you can ape some altcoins, go for a quick flip, but that's not altcoin season. So truly, Bitcoin dominance has not broken down for 2 years. Now, does this mean it will never happen? No. This is why I have something like this drawn. So you just need to see this actually come to fruition, where you have lows on Bitcoin dominance, and then you have lower lows instead of like higher lows where it bounces back. And I think in my book, what is going to be a Bitcoin dominance breakdown that looks real? It's going to be, first of all, on the weekly time frame. So you got to zoom out and stop looking at daily, right? Even this one back here, a lot of people were calling for altcoin season again. And I was saying basically, yeah, we could have an altcoin in a couple weeks, but until it confirms a downtrend on the weekly like this, that's not a real altcoin season. Okay, so that's number one. And number two, if when Trump won the election, Bitcoin dominance could not drop below the 50-week SMA, that means to me that the 50-week SMA is actually pretty significant for long-term support for Bitcoin dominance. So ideally, I would like to see the 50-week SMA being broken on Bitcoin dominance as well. So if we see lower highs and lower lows, and we see Bitcoin dominance, this red, if this kind of a pattern play out, it needs to break below this blue average line, right? That would mean that something systematically has changed that made altcoins go up against Bitcoin over a longer period of time, over larger percentage that's even more significant than Trump winning the election. Because otherwise, if Trump election win is not enough of an individual catalyst to trigger this, like what other one-time event could trigger it? Really nothing. It needs to be a global liquidity shift, Fed pivot, something that can really last for a long time. So that's why right now, you don't need to be jumping the gun here and say, oh yeah, we have an altcoin season. This is the start that is going to last multiple years, or, even like longer than 1 month. We have not had that, right? Every time that Bitcoin dominance drop like this for a bit, sure, there could be 1 month where you can ape some shitcoins and you make some trades and you can outperform Bitcoin for a little bit, but just be sure you know what you're doing and you understand that you got to take profit pretty quickly from those positions. So that's my stance on currently where Bitcoin dominance is sitting. But nonetheless, things are looking good because back here when I was talking about, when to buy altcoins, Bitcoin dominance is only one piece of the puzzle because we're always going to be late in confirming this. If you see Bitcoin dominance already somewhere here, let's say in September, if it drops to lower highs and lower lows, yeah, you're missing out on a bit of gains. So what other signals are there? Well, of course, we need to have Ethereum performing and outperforming Bitcoin. So here, this is looking quite good, actually. The Ethereum pump we're seeing right now, where Ethereum is, wow, nearly $3,000, pretty crazy. Dollar value aside, Ethereum has a higher low against Bitcoin on a weekly basis. This is really good. So as long as we close above, what is this close here? That is at 0.024, right? These are the previous closes. Let's say we get the next weekly candle above 0.024. We don't entirely retrace this move. That will look really good because basically that's a weekly confirmation that ETH BTC ratio is showing a higher low. And we have not had that for, when's the last time we had this? Well, I can't even find it. It would be February 2022, January 2022. So over almost 3.5 years that this has not happened. Maybe one time here, a little bit. Yeah, here you could see it. Yeah, it's kind of iffy. It's not as clear as this because you have a big weekly candle and then you have only 4 weeks and then the next one. Whereas this candle, and then since this last candle, it has already been 2 months. So this will look very confirming for Ethereum to outperform Bitcoin. Now we know in order for altcoin season to play out, Ethereum first has to outperform Bitcoin. And then you have the other large caps, for example, Solana, right? So Solana in my head really needs to hold above just the last low it made in June on the ETH BTC ratio. So far, so good. It hasn't revisited these lows, but it's not looking as good as ETH at the moment. So not much more to say about it. If you are looking at Solana, if you're bullish on Solana, this is actually a really good entry zone. And we have already been DCAing into Solana quite aggressively using our bots. So you see on our bots performance on Solana, we're up 24%, 23.5% already. And the reason why I say it's very aggressive is because my lower range on Solana is actually just set at $95. And that translates to just a little bit of a buffer on Bitcoin's price and basically for Solana to respect this low. So that's it. So I'm basically buying Solana right here from current price to this low price on the ETH BTC ratio. And that's it. And I think that's all value range for Solana. If you see a altcoin season playing out, there's very little chance that Solana doesn't make a new high if altcoins all come back. Okay, that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and then, right. So back to the chart at hand, which is Bitcoin dominance. So aside from Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin, Solana outperforming Bitcoin, for this kind of a long-term alt season to actually come out, which I'm not saying it has to be now. Okay, we see it when we see it. But what are other signs that we could see earlier? We know that it's the Fed's monetary policy, what they're doing with liquidity, with the balance sheet, and the Fed's balance sheet you can track directly. That's called WALCL. Haven't talked about this for a while, so this is the ticker that you can find on TradingView. This right now is still going down. Okay, so even though the Fed has hinted that they want to pause QT by mid 2025, we're basically mid 2025 right now. They haven't stopped the runoff of their balance sheet. However, global liquidity is mostly concerned with the Fed's balance sheet, but there are also other components such as the overnight repo, the supplementary leverage ratio, and other central banks, for instance. And all of those metrics together can be calculated with this indicator, can be followed with this indicator called Global Liquidity Index, very conveniently sourceable on TradingView. So you can find that and make sure you tick these settings and not the M2 money supply stuff, because that's going to be way too big and it's ever expanding the money supply. Whereas the central bank system and the Treasury General account and the reverse repo agreements, these are going to be the things that actually matter. So you see global liquidity is actually looking pretty decent. That's this purple indicator line. I'm going to make the Bitcoin dominance a little bit less obvious here. So you see global liquidity has made lower highs and lower lows up until April. So back here, April, when we made this slight high above the previous high in August 2024, so far that hasn't been fully retraced. And you could say this is a potential higher low being made on global liquidity, where you have a low, you have a lower high, a lower low, and then potentially a higher low. So next up, let's say we chop in this period, maybe until Q4, which I'm going to show you a bit why I think we still need to wait until Q4. But it just needs to hold about the current level until Q4 and make a significant high first above the September 2024 level and above the April 2025 level right here. So even if it just does this, that will be more than enough, because all of a sudden this chart will look really good. Enough time has elapsed, and with this high, you would say that this is low, and no matter how you look at it, the last high, you can take this high, you can take this high, whatever it is, this will be a new high above either of these. So that will look really good. So far, I wouldn't say this is a clear confirmation, because, I mean, you could say this is a high, and then if this kind of flips over and takes out this low, then that will be another just chop again, because these two highs are too close. So we really need to see it hold and make a new high just slightly above the April high. That would be really solid. So I think we need to still see the Fed step in and do something serious this time in Q4, whether that's a cut of interest rates, which a lot of people are expecting to happen in Q4 in the September meeting already. Pause of QT, that will be the ultimate pivot if they do, or something like repo injection or the supplementary leverage ratio. Those could all play into this global liquidity making a new high here. So what's next for the Fed that can make this happen? And why is this important? Well, very simple. You look at the global liquidity chart overlaid on top of Bitcoin dominance chart. And basically, when global liquidity goes down, Bitcoin dominance goes up. Okay, the two, basically, global liquidity topped here, Bitcoin dominance bottomed here. And way back in 2019, global liquidity bottomed, Bitcoin dominance topped, right? Somewhere here, this was like 2019 bear market low, where global liquidity printed its low. And then even before that, way back in 2017, Bitcoin dominance topped and started to show strength for altcoins and Bitcoin dominance going down, and you see global liquidity really start to run. So this is the ultimate signal we need to see. And because this is such a long period of time, this global liquidity chart is a weekly chart. So you don't want to follow this too close and say, oh, like this next week, next day, whatever, right? You need to really make sure this is confirmed. It's looking good, way better than all of this period we had from early 2023 all the way until end of 2024. So the first half of 2025, this move right here, really promising, but it's not fully confirmed yet. Okay, so that's why I say we're getting very close to altcoin season, but it's not fully confirmed. And I really think this right here on Bitcoin dominance, confirming a new downtrend, will really coincide with Q4 and coincide with global liquidity showing uptrend and breaking April highs and making a higher high, higher low. Okay, so some more hopium then for you guys, even though it's not immediate. What is happening in the repo market and in the supplementary leverage ratio? So this is the overnight repo market, which is described as the amount of treasury securities that's purchased by the Fed in the temporary overnight open market. So this facility is used basically as a facility of cash for banks to lend to each other overnight after they are closed. So whenever this facility is used, where let's see, I want to get the exact wording here. Let's see. So overnight repo agreements are how banks store cash with each other. And this repo market is effectively a gauge of the liquidity of capital markets and how much liquidity there is in the financial banks in the US. So more liquidity is positive for the market. And whenever the liquidity is tight, banks are running low on cash overnight, and thus the Fed, when they make one of these injections, like we see right here this year, on June 30th, this is just less than 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, the Fed injected $11 billion overnight of cash in order to facilitate banks' liquidity. And the last time that this has happened, very small amount, much less so, is September 2024. And then the time before that is way back in 2020 during COVID. So this is why the signal is so significant, because it has not happened for 5 years now for this level of injection. Now, this isn't directly, cash going into the system. It's just a temporary overnight cash facility for banks to borrow against, so that their money could flow between each other because liquidity is tight. So essentially, the Fed is buying repo here, taking on the obligation from participating banks. And this is most typically a sign of low confidence among banks lending to each other, or in other words, drying up of liquidity between banks. So this is very important. Liquidity is actually drying up, but it's not causing anything to break, because the Fed is actually willing to step in here and provide that short-term liquidity for the banks to have enough cash to lend to each other. So this is why it's actually meaningful. And the bank, since 2008, and when there were banking reforms, they are really unwilling to do these overnight liquidity injections. So this is why you see this facility has not been used since June 29th, 2020. The only 2 times that it has been used was September last year and then 2 weeks ago. Okay, and because this $11 billion is quite significant, that's why this is very good. And it's a good sign, because ultimately, if this is not a signal that the banks are about to break, then this could be seen as a positive for markets, as it means that the Fed will stand in for liquidity as needed to keep the financial markets moving along with few hiccups. So let's say if liquidity conditions continue to tighten and the Fed allows their balance sheet to run off even further, and they don't cut rates until September, and people will be worried, right? What if banks don't have enough liquidity? Well, since the Fed is willing to do these overnight liquidity injections, that's actually quite positive. So even though the banks are not willing to say, "Oh, we're making a full pivot," they are helping the markets. So that's number one. The fact that they use this facility again, which they so desperately did not want to use over the last 5 years. This is a very positive sign that the Fed is moving. Okay. Number two is the new proposal for the supplementary leverage ratio from the Fed. So I tweeted about this on June 26th. This is coming from the Fed's meeting on June 25th. So this tweet here isn't exactly completely accurate. So I just want to correct myself. So in this tweet, I said that they proposed cutting the SLR ratio to free up leverage to buy treasuries specifically. Now, this isn't the case. Actually, they proposed a cut to the SLR ratio to buy all assets, not just treasuries. Okay, so we need to preface this just by explaining what this is. So the supplementary leverage ratio is a regulation put against the US banks, specifically the global systematically important banks. So your, JP Morgan's, your I don't even, Citi, the largest banks, right? So in order to allow banks and to help in the treasury market, to some extent, they can change the supplementary leverage ratio to allow the banks to take up, to use, to buy treasuries more freely without having to worry about how much collateral they have. So most famously, this supplementary leverage ratio, SLR, was suspended during COVID time, which allowed these GSIBs to buy up infinite amount of treasuries in 2020. And this helped the US government by a lot because they need ultimately a healthy treasury market. Now, right now, the biggest problem facing the US government and the Fed together is the treasury market. Who are going to be buying the treasuries? That's why you see them doing all of this positive deregulation for stablecoins, because they buy a lot of treasuries. Similarly, the US banks, they can buy treasuries directly. Now, how much can they buy is directly dependent on this supplementary leverage ratio. So this proposal being put on June 25th is going to lower the amount of collateral needed for these global systematically important banks so that they can buy more assets. Now, it's actually not only applying to treasuries, but everything else as well. So this has been also not used since COVID time, since 2020. And a lot of economic analysts, macro analysts have been saying that the Fed should do this, should propose a change to the SLR again, because it worked in 2020. If they want to support the market without, directly buying assets, without doing QE again, printing money, they could do this, right? They could allow the banks to do it, allow the banks to buy more treasuries. So the Fed is doing this. The Fed proposed that they're going to lower the SLR ratio. This hasn't been put in place yet. And you see more comments for this proposal are due on August 26, 2025. So by sometime in Q4, this SLR change could come in place, which is going to inject more liquidity to treasuries and thus to overall asset markets, because it's downflowing, but the top funnel has to be treasuries. So you can Google this yourself. Fed is advancing their plans to ease bank leverage requirements. When people are saying, deregulation, or the Fed is doing deregulation to help liquidity in the system, to help the financial markets, people are thinking, they're going to do some weird, allowing things to trade more freely. No, this is deregulation can directly mean liquidity flowing into the system and lead to this global liquidity going up. That could come directly from lowering the SLR ratio, and the Fed is doing this. And this, in fact, is also very close, right? This was also 2 weeks ago. So these two things have both played out 2 weeks ago, which the Fed has not been doing for the past 5 years. So it is not immediately happening right now where money is going into financial markets, but it's a really good sign. So the Fed is moving. Okay, so combine that with the fact that the new FOMC minutes just came out. And in these minutes, even though the Fed, the votes and the discussions have not been unanimous, everyone do agree that they haven't agreed on which date that they're going to cut rates, but they do agree that they should cut rates this year. And most people, most officials from the Fed do not want to cut rates in the July FOMC meeting, but most people do agree that by September they should cut. And that's starting to reflect in the market probability pricing. So you see on the CME Fed Watch tool, by July 30th FOMC meeting, the market is basically pricing in no rate cuts, 93% chance. But by September, there's already a 63.9% chance that people are pricing in a rate cut. And this does fall in line with what the Fed FOMC meetings are saying. So all of that is to say, when you look at the SLR, when you look at the repo injection, when you look at the Fed cut, and when you look at the Fed's proposed earliest timeline to pause QT is mid-2025, my timeline is still Q4, right? September, by the September FOMC meeting, markets should be a lot better. We should at least have something, okay? Either the SLR ratio has been lowered after these, proposals pass their comment stage, or, the Fed just continues to do repo, injection overnight to help the liquidity in between banks if they don't do anything else, or they have paused QT, which they have hinted one time before already, or just very simply they cut rates by the September meeting, which people are pricing in at 63% chance. So we could see the finish line here, September 17-ish, right? Q4, start of Q4. Until then, there could be some chop, but for something serious to happen, for the system to really break from now until September, you're not looking at too much time anymore. There's only 2 months to go. So I think the market is looking much better now that we have had 7 months of 2025 and still we haven't had, a full-on recession. Things are looking okay. So all in all, things are looking pretty good. We just need to survive until Q4, until September. By that time, any of these things could play out, which is going to lead to liquidity really starting to come in. So that's my stance. But ultimately, you need to see liquidity actually rising and making new highs. And that's right here, right? That's with the global liquidity index, which takes into account everything. And yeah, so far, it's going to be chop. This is what I'm expecting until Q4, and then something could play out. And similarly for Bitcoin dominance, how long is it going to take for a full out season to confirm, for Bitcoin dominance to actually confirm lower highs and lower lows, essentially a downtrend? You can't say that it can be confirmed within this week, no matter what happens. Okay, just go back to the election week. How good did the market look for altcoins in that week? It looked amazing. But even that was retraced after, right? This was not the start of the altcoin season. So how can you say this is the start of the altcoin season without enough time of monitoring this? You can't. No matter how dramatic this goes. Even if it does something like this, where, it looks like one of these candles. Let me see if I can find the price range here. So this candle was a 4.5%, let's say. You overlay that to right here, right? And then you have another 4% candle down, right? So that would be like 8% drop, right? Even if Bitcoin dominance over the next 2 weeks drops to 60%, that would still be roughly like Trump's election win day. If that can be retraced, what's to say this can be retraced? So I would say don't jump the gun on altcoin season. Yeah, we can expect 1 month at least. That's pretty safe. If you want to play altcoins immediately, sure. You can enter in some positions, low caps, whatever, but just look to take profit before the month ends. I would not hold, large exposure in shady altcoins for longer than 1 month, because the time in Bitcoin dominance is really what matters here. You need to see Bitcoin dominance actually consistently go lower and lower with lower highs and lower lows. And that needs to last for longer than this period, which was 5 weeks, right? So we had 3 weeks now, and then you could have another 2 weeks of lower Bitcoin dominance, but that still would not be enough to confirm, right? You need to see longer time period than that. So that will lead us already into August. So that's why I say, best to wait until September. Even if we're going to have full-on alt season, probably that's the only confirmation we're going to see by the earliest time that can be confirmed is September. So the timeline matches as well when it comes to Q4. Okay, so that's all the macro stuff. You guys will say, it's boring, it's whatever, but you have to get this stuff right. You can't just say, oh, I understand that Bitcoin dominance needs to break down in order to trigger an altcoin season, but then you look at just a little bit of down move on Bitcoin dominance and you're zoomed all the way into like 4-hour chart or daily chart, and you're only looking at this and you're saying this is altcoin season. That's ridiculous, right? Because then you're just ignoring the clear traps that we have been in on Bitcoin dominance. One time, here it was a trap, here trap, right? And then like each of these, remember, this is weekly time frame we're on. Like all of this, was this altcoin season? No. Right? Was this altcoin season? No. So don't zoom all the way in and say you understand Bitcoin dominance. You have to zoom all the way out and then look at convincingly to yourself, if this was not a Bitcoin dominance breakdown, what is going to be an actual Bitcoin dominance breakdown? Right? If you chose this answer, what does that actually look like? Be realistic with yourself. Then you won't be trapped in altcoins, right? Okay, so all that is to say, I'm not bearish, right? I hold so much Bitcoin right now, which I'm very happy with. I hold a lot of Ethereum. I hold a lot of Solana as well, because those two are pretty safe, in my opinion. I want to hold more XRP as well. If you hold those, like fine. I don't think you need to worry about them too much. As long as eventually we'll have a altcoin season, those are all going to do quite well against Bitcoin. And especially if you're holding Bitcoin, like there is no reason to be worried about Bitcoin at all. It's just continuously in a bull market. But we're not in a full-on altcoin bull market yet for low caps. Okay, so with that being said, I do want to leave you guys off with some more entry strategies in terms of just direct trade setups. So I have already set up our trading bots for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. So you can see the ranges right here. If you go to the links in my bio, you can find these 3 bots that you can copy directly. I also have them in my portfolio spreadsheet where I have tracked their ranges that I have set up on the bots, as well as how much margin you should have in order to keep these positions safe. So by safe, I mean like absolutely safe, because my Bitcoin liquidation here is 23,000, Solana liquidation $40, right? Ethereum liquidation $600. So I don't expect these to be ever hit. But I'm also setting these up for other altcoins that I have in my portfolio and I really want to hold. So XRP, Superverse, BitTensor, TAO, PEPE, these are coins that I have always talked about. And even XRP, I do really want to add it to my portfolio soon. So these are the ranges I have set up, and I'm just going to go over them really quick. So for XRP, my range is currently $1.45 and all the way to $6. So I think $6 is pretty conservative, to be honest, for a bull market take profit. $1.45, I come to that level with this. So on the XRP versus Bitcoin chart, I expected XRP to go a bit lower towards the 382 Fibonacci retracement. That's at 0.000017 as a ratio against Bitcoin. And on a dollar level, if Bitcoin stayed at somewhere between like 100 and 110K, that would be around $1.80. So this was a video that I made back here as well. This one. Now, this dip, it came a little bit because this was back here when XRP was trading against Bitcoin a little bit higher than this low. But XRP bounced back pretty quickly, actually. It only went to the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement. So I don't know if this is going to happen again. And that's why I do want to start the bot soon. So I'm making the ranges now for the bot so we can start to DCA in. Even if XRP has a little bit lower on the XRP BTC ratio, I still could have a position and continue to DCA down. So what does this look like if this happens? So let's say XRP drops to 0.0017 on the XRP BTC ratio. And if Bitcoin, on its worst case scenario, drops here to the 50-week simple moving average, that's at 87K right now, that would be this calculation. 0.40172 times the current 50-week SMA on Bitcoin, that's $1.49. So just a little bit lower is $1.45 as a whole number. And that's why I have used that as my absolute lowest level I want to see on XRP in order for me to still remain bullish on it. Okay, so that would also be quite a bit lower than the 50-week SMA on XRP itself. And it would be lower than this low right here. And it would be lower than basically a very typical, retrace level. That's very deep for altcoin versus Bitcoin for blue chip. So that's the range I have. And the take profit at $6 is just a little bit lower than my, bull market plan for XRP that I have had for quite a while now. I think the first time that I have covered XRP, I had a range between $6 to $8. This is honestly quite a while ago. I think it was back here. I don't know, the thumbnail says 98 because people always say it can go to $100. We're not going there. I think $6 to $8 is pretty fair. Even if you want to target 10, I think it's doable. But anything higher than that, I would not hold. So I gave it a pretty conservative level at 6. So $1.45 to 6. That's basically my just bull market range, right? Absolute low I want to see $1.45. $6 I would be very happy. The leverage rate, the margin ratio to the investment amount is 1. Same as for Solana. This gives you a liquidation level that's very safe. So I'm just going to input that right now. $1.45, $6 range, 500 grids. So let's say you invest $500 in the bot and you put $500 extra margin. You see here the liquidation price 41 cents for XRP. So in my mind, that's very safe. 41 cent is even below pre-election levels. 41 cent, actually just below these lows here. So basically all of the election gains would be erased for your position to be liquidated somewhere down here. That's why I'm very, okay with holding this long term, because I truly want these to be long-term bots instead of something you have to keep an eye out for day-to-day basis. Okay, so that's on XRP. I'm going to set these up as copy bots as well, but they're not live yet. I will give you guys an update on X and on the Coiners trading group, so make sure to follow on those two places. Okay, then 3 altcoins that I have had in my portfolio for a very long time. BitTensor, Superverse, and PEPE. These three I have had for like a year and a half, 2 years now. So I really want to put these three in ASAP with price ranges as well. So these are the ranges I have set. These are going to be quite wide, but all of these three positions actually have very similar bull market support that has held for 2 years. So I cover these levels quite often, actually. So first of all, let's go for BitTensor TAO. You see these lows made in November, December 2023. This was when Bitcoin made the 20K low and started its bull run. And BitTensor followed that, made the first low and retraced to $200. And basically this was significant in the last two drops in July 2024 and then in March 2025. So if you want to be extra safe, you can take the lowest lows of these drops, which would be somewhere around $170, $160 even, right? Take that as a low. So really, if BitTensor still is going to remain bullish, you don't want to see this low being taken out and this low being taken out. That's pretty simple, right? So that's the low that I have set, I believe. Yeah, $160 for BitTensor TAO as the low right here. So I want my bot to continue buying more and more TAO, right, as the level drops. And I wanted to stop buying if it goes that low, below 160. At that point, I gotta really consider, okay, do I want to hold this long term or not, right? And if that breaks, maybe I got a stop loss. And then on the upside, I do believe BitTensor has good chance to make new highs above $700 to $800. Now, if there is going to be a layer one that is the layer one for AI blockchain, that's going to be BitTensor. I think most people are going to agree with that. What should be the valuation for that kind of a project? I think it's not even top 30. I want it to be top 20. So peak bull market valuations for this kind of a coin, top 20, what can you expect? I think that's 10 billion at least, somewhere around the 20 billion range for market cap is a good target. I think that's how I came to these levels. So circulating market cap, let's say it grows to 10 million. And am I getting these numbers right? Yes. So 10 million, 10 billion valuation for 10 million tokens, that's $1,000 per TAO. If it goes to even 20 billion valuation, that's $2,000 per TAO. So lower end of that, $1,000 just as a very safe bull market take profit. Totally doable if BitTensor is going to remain bullish. And if we have this altcoin season, this altcoin bull run, it's hard to see BitTensor not making a run. So $1,000 upper range. I don't want to aim too high immediately because maybe there's other layer ones in AI as well. I don't know, but yeah, I think 1,000, honestly, not too bullish, not too overly bullish. I want to be realistic here. Okay, so that's the range I have on TAO. Let's go over Superverse as well. So let's go to the trading view charts. Again, very similar, right? October to November 2023, Bitcoin breakout above 20K to 30K. Super made its first run, and then these lows have been respected over the last two drops. Very similar to the TAO chart. So if Super is to remain bullish, you don't want to see this low being taken out. You don't want to see these lows being taken out. So that's roughly 37 cents. I have it set at a pretty tight level below that at 35. That's the low I have set right here. Because, I mean, these are wicks. It's not even candle closes. So I wanted to stop at least somewhere above there. So I have it set at 35. And then what's the high that we want to set? So even just previous all-time high, in 2021 when gaming was super bullish, no pun intended, $3.40, $3.50. I don't want to aim too much higher than that. So basically I have set my entire take profit. I want to exit a position, conservatively speaking, $3.50. That will be basically peak of the gaming run high. Okay, so that's the range. $3.50, 35 cents low, $3.50 high. Anywhere below current level from 76 cents all the way down to 35 cents, it will be buying. And then it will be kind of slowly taking profit all the way up to $3.50. Not much more to say there. I mean, if we're going to have another altcoin bull run, remember, right? Just in the Trump hype, Super had to run all the way to $2. And that wasn't the full-on altcoin season that we were talking about because it only lasted 1 month or so post-election hype. So if we're going to have an extended altcoin run, I have a hard time seeing this not break above this $2.20 level. And then the previous all-time high is at $3.50. So I think targeting somewhere in this range will be conservative. And that's why I have set my upper range at $3.50. Okay, so that's on Super. And okay, let's just go over the margin ratio as well. Again, just testing using margin of 1. This actually makes it really safe of a position. I'm just going to show you right here. So let's go to the Super chart. You can set this up directly following this video. So lower range 35 cents, higher range $3.50, max grid quantity to maximize the grid profit for arbitrage. And then you set investment amount same as the margin amount, which is 1-to-1. You see the liquidation price is 7.5 cents. Going back to the chart, where is 7.5 cents? That would give us nearly at the all-time low that Super has been at. Before, at the peak capitulation, peak despair in 2023. So these are the risk levels that I'm putting you guys into. Like, I really don't want you to worry about these positions because with this kind of a setup, I mean, yeah, like the levels are all there. You're not going to get liquidated unless this coin just completely erase all the gains that it has made over the last 3 years. Okay. So that's on Super. And then finally, PEPE. So PEPE is the one meme I think is just going to continue to run this cycle. You could look at Pengu, another good example I want to put into the bot format soon. Or you could look at a more blue chip bet that would be Doge. I think PEPE has a good shot to take maybe 1/3 of the market share of Doge. That's the rough market cap that I have put as the upper range for PEPE. So I'll show you that right now. First of all, the low range for PEPE. Let's go to the PEPE chart right here. The way I see these three coins as very similar. I don't know why, to be honest, why these coins have performed so similarly. But again, you see these lows, right? That PEPE has made one time and then another time. So if you don't want PEPE to erase all the gains and remain bullish, you don't want these lows to be taken out. So you could say that 0.00, I believe it's 5 zeros and a 5, is these kind of closes in this wick here. So overall, PEPE has been still in an uptrend. These two lows, technically speaking, this is a low, this is a higher low. So I wanted to really respect this low here. And that's why I have put my lower range at just a 5 here, not this large wick that's at 3.7. if you want to consider this even, I mean, that's quite far away, and that's going to eat into your profit margin, to be honest. So I just set it as 5 right here. And that's already 57, not even 57, only 59% buffer for a drop from current price. Okay, so that's the lower range I have set to for PEPE to respect the higher low structure. And then on the upper range, we really got to let our imagination take place here. Because first of all, you could just target this high, which should be taken out if we have a larger bull run. That's a sustained altcoin season that is going to be longer lasting than the election run that we had in December. So this high should be taken out. So then, if this high gets taken out, what could be some market cap ranges? I really just pair it to Doge. So looking at Doge, currently Doge is at 29 billion market cap. The peak market cap of Doge is 75, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken. This is kind of hard to get at, but right here, 73.8. If PEPE is to reach the current market cap of Doge, somewhere between 20-30 billion, PEPE is currently at 5 billion, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 5.2. So that would be about a 6x. And luckily, it's fully circulating. So I believe I took 25 billion as a target, as a whole number. So 4 zeros and 6 for PEPE, that would translate to 25 billion market cap, which would still be below the current market cap of Doge and about 1/3 of the market cap of Doge at its peak. I don't think it'll overtake Doge, but that's just something I set myself as. Now, is it going to be the exact top? No. Okay, we don't know. I roughly know that it should go above the market cap that it made in December, right here, which was 11 billion. And it should be closer to Doge's market cap. So somewhere, above 20 billion, let's say. But can it be much higher? Sure. It can be maybe 30, 40 billion. It can be 15 billion. The good thing about using these bots is that it's not trying to time the absolute top. Just look at, let's say we put these numbers in for PEPE. Okay, you set the absolute low that you want to buy, the lowest level that you want to buy, and then you set the absolute top that you want to sell all your position at, and then you can preview the grids, say 500 grids. You see that these are all going to be your position entry and exits. So the bot will automatically buy more and more as price goes down. This is completely it's too zoomed in here. So the bot will keep buying until these lows, and then it will keep selling until up here. So as long as you set a level that you are very comfortable with completely taking profit from PEPE, in this case, at 25 billion market cap, you're good. Because it will do that. The bot will do that. The bot will give you an average exit somewhere in between this range. And if the top is lower than that, you will have quite a big chunk of the exit. And if it goes above that, whatever, you're also happy because you set the level at a range that you're totally happy with selling your entire position, even if it runs higher. Because right now we're quite a bit lower than that, right? So we're looking at like how many X's is that? 6X. If you're happy with that, good. You can use these ranges. I'm totally happy with that. If you're unhappy with that, if you want to sell lower, you just set these lower. Let's say you're only expecting a 4X on PEPE. You just set the upper range should be lower than that. That would be at roughly 5 from current level. If you're even more conservative than that, you just set it at whatever you want to set it at, right? Very simple. So that's the benefit of using these bots. It's not trying to time the absolute lowest price and the absolute higher price. It's just what is the lowest price that you would still remain bullish? You set that as the lowest range that you buy. And then what is the absolute highest price that you're just totally okay with missing out all the gains on top of that? You set that at the as the upper range, and then you let the bot do the rest. Not going to be talking about any low caps, anything like that, because we have plenty of time before Bitcoin dominance truly confirms this breakdown. And back to the beginning of the video, even if you really want this to be an altcoin season, just wait it out. I think from now until September is the key period you don't want to get wrong. Okay, so just rewatch the video, share it with a friend if you're still curious about when we can truly ape into altcoins freely. Alex Lovita says, this is a good question to leave it. So why should I go for Bitcoin now while I can invest in something like PO? I don't know why you would invest in Polygon now. It's ridiculous. But again, okay, wait for a 5x on insert your favorite altcoin if it ever goes there, instead of probably a 2x in the medium term for Bitcoin. My answer to that is, why not hold Bitcoin while you can in your portfolio when you are not investing into these coins yet? People make it seem like if you don't buy your favorite altcoin now, you're going to miss out on the immediate 5x. This is simply false. If you just look at Bitcoin dominance, okay, and take the Trump election time. When Trump won the election in November last year, right here was when everyone wanted to buy their favorite altcoin, including me. Okay, I bought a lot of altcoins then because honestly, like, Trump was going to be the main thing that is going to propel altcoins forward. But even then, if you just sat on your hands, held Bitcoin, what happened in the 6 months after? You made money, right? Because Bitcoin went up more percentage than altcoins. So what you're describing here, where you are missing out on the potential 5x immediately, whereas Bitcoin is only going to do 2x, that has not happened. And it has not happened for this whole period that Bitcoin dominance has gone up, which is almost 3 years now. And the one-time event, that's the biggest FOMO event ever when Trump won the election, also did not make this come true, right? Your altcoins did not immediately do a 5x while Bitcoin did a 2x. Instead, they pumped for 3 weeks and they erased all their gains for the 6 months after that. So what you're describing is what people think the market is doing, but the market is not doing that. What instead the market is doing is you are not catching the gains in Bitcoin by not having Bitcoin, which since Trump won the election back here, like in November, let's say it was like 75K to 115K. How much did Bitcoin go up since election week? It's about 64% till now, okay? And then in the meantime, so if you didn't hold Bitcoin, you missed out on 64% gain. And then in the meantime, in altcoins, you did not make higher returns than that. For most altcoins, you underperformed this 64% gain because Bitcoin dominance went up instead of down. So the answer to your question is, what you're describing is very unlikely to happen. It's extremely unlikely to happen until exactly what we have described earlier, which is, Bitcoin dominance showing something like this, global liquidity showing something like this, and then it wouldn't be too late because you have all of this pent up pressure on Bitcoin dominance over the last 3 years that could be all of these gains, percentages that could come to altcoins. But you have to wait for that to be confirmed. That immediate 5x can only come if Bitcoin dominance does something like this over the long term, and then, okay, each of these times, right, let's say here, okay, one of your narratives does 5x, here one of your narratives does 5x, another narrative does 5x, it can only happen like that. If Trump's catalyst was not able to make this 5x scenario that you described happen back in December last year, then it's not going to happen immediately right now. So you're not missing out on potential 5x on any of your favorite altcoin immediately. And you just need to hold Bitcoin. Sure, you're not going to get a 5x on Bitcoin itself, but if you're holding altcoins and not holding Bitcoin right now, you are not even going to get this kind of smaller return. You're going to get like way less return, if any, until Bitcoin dominance drops down sustainably like this. Okay, so yeah, like people think that they're missing out on altcoins immediately, but they're not, because it hasn't happened. Nothing is suggesting for that to happen. So I would say just hold like majority in Bitcoin, more than 50% in Bitcoin, and then to cure your FOMO a little bit, hold 10% to 20% in Ethereum, 10 to 20% in Solana, and then you're good, right? Because if altcoins are going to pump, like whatever altcoin your favorite one is, Ethereum has to pump, and then Solana has to pump, and then like XRP has to pump. So these things always happen first. So by holding these, you have the early gains, you have the sustainable gains, you cure your FOMO, and then you know the signal. When these all make new highs against Bitcoin, it wouldn't be too late then to go into whatever your favorite narrative is in terms of another altcoin that you think can go 5x. And that timing will match something like this on Bitcoin dominance. Okay, I'm not going to drag this on too much further. You know, you get what I'm saying here. If you don't believe that and you just simply can't see past the current week of what people are saying about altcoins, then I mean, you just have to hold your altcoins while they do nothing until this happens, which even then is not going to be too far away, maybe like 3 months away. So if anything, just don't be bearish. Don't be bearish on anything right now, okay? Just be bullish. I'll leave it with that. I think that's generally good recommendation. Be bullish. Okay, let's end it there. Thank you guys for joining the live stream. Check out my Twitter or X at VirtualBacon0x. This is where I'm going to be updating you guys with entries into my bots, as well as any day-to-day trades, all going to be going on my X. And join our community, the Coiners, link in the description. And also you can find all the links to the current bots that I'm running on Ponex, as well as all of their settings using our portfolio spreadsheet. So check those out. You can copy my trading strategies directly using these bots. Okay, thank you guys for joining the live stream, and I will see you on the next one and the next video. Bye-bye.